I'm Sebastian St. James. Can you beat the market by using leverage? Will investing borrowed money make you rich? If you have a return on investment of 10%, if you had $100,000, you get $10,000 back. Yes, that's right. But if you had $400,000, you get back $40,000. Perfect. You get back an extra $30,000. That's the difference between having a holiday in the French Alps or out the back of Dubbo. Cool story, Sebastian. The problem is I need an extra $300,000 to magically appear. How does that happen? This is Sean Grant, my latest channel member, who is offering to give you $300,000, no questions asked. Oh, what a nice mob boss. So, taking my money plus Sean's money, getting a 10% return, I can easily afford to go skiing. But there's a problem. What if the market goes down instead of up? I started with a balance of $100,000. Sean gave me $300,000, which makes $400,000, which I promptly invested. But there was a 25% loss. Oh, that means I've lost $100,000. So after the investment, I've now got $300,000. Not bad. But I have to return to Sean the money he lent me, which is $300,000. So my final balance is zero. So leverage can give me a vacation in the Swiss Alps, or it could send me broke. Still, I do like skiing, and it's highly unlikely that the ASX would ever go down by 25%. In the crash of 1987, the All Ordinaries Index had a loss of approximately 49.42%. Okay. So being wiped out if you use leverage is a real thing. There is a group of elite people, so elite that the banks are falling over themselves to give them money. Let's meet one of those elite now. This is Meredith Johnson, my latest channel member. These elite are called homeowners. And some of them think they can mortgage their house and invest that money. Who would dare to have such a bullshit plan? Oh, it's Elmo. Would this not be an unreasonable strategy to borrow against your home after it's paid off and borrow against a parcel of shares? That could not be an unreasonable strategy, but to find that out, we need to test the hypothesis. By the way, why am I making a video about Elmo's question and not yours, when clearly yours is the most important question ever asked? That's because Elmo is one of my channel members, plus he gives regular thanks. Those two things combined push his questions to the top of the queue. Now that is a superpower. Meredith wants to borrow against her home. But here's the truth about borrowing money. You have to find a way to make loan repayments. Meredith first tries to make money by doing gorillograms. But then she discovered a secret. Do you know you can invest that money in the market, let it grow, and then take some of that and pay off your loan? You win if your stock market earnings are greater than your interest repayments. If so, you could borrow money and it would pay for itself. And then you could borrow more money and it would pay for itself. This is good in theory, but would it ever happen in practice? To find out, we need to look at the historical data and find out whether the stock market returns actually did beat the home loan interest rates. But there's a problem. When it comes to finding home loan interest rates, you can't. At least not more than a few years back. This is the Australian owner-occupier variable housing rate. And that's provided by the Reserve Bank of Australia. And all this data is only, 5 years? Thanks a lot, RBA. What can I do with only 5 years worth of data? But if I can get my hands on the raw data, the data underneath that graph, I could go back decades. Oh, and here it is. Perfect. We have all the data we want. And that goes back, only 2 years. Would you like to know what the home loan rates have been over the last decade? Too bad. You don't deserve to know. But there are graphs that go back a long way. But clearly somebody has that data. I spent a few weeks trying to get my hands on the raw data. I spoke to the RBA, I spoke to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, I spoke to several expensive data brokers trying to get my hands on historical home loan rates. And although it took me a long time, I think it's all worth it. Oh, I just got a thanks from Terry. Thank you very much, Terry. Do you know that I know what Terry looks like in real life? That I will show you later. You want to know the historical mortgage rates for your entire life? Well, I just might have that data for you. What's this? Oh, the home loan interest rates for 65.1 years. It's all there, and that's longer than I've been alive. So what are we looking at? Well, it's the Australian Standard Variable Rates, owner-occupied. What a magnificent beast! Everything you could possibly want to know if you wanted to borrow against your home to invest in the stock market. But as powerful as my data is, if you try to compare that against the stock market, you're in for one big surprise. And what am I looking at? In red is the ASX 200 going up. Well, that makes sense. And in blue, the negative home loan rates. I'm yet to have a bank pay me money to borrow from them, so something's going on here. Please explain. There are two certainties in life. First, you'll accidentally send off an email before you finished it.
Damn it.
And secondly, you can't combine interest rates and stock market returns on the same graph. But if I take those raw interest rates, and I start with $1,000, and I increase that money by the spot interest rate at each period, then, I get this. And that's the same data, only this time cumulative. Well, that makes sense. What an amazing graph. Finally, I can compare stock market returns and home loan interest rates together on the same graph. But PJ wants to know how much it will cost him to buy his Flybridge cruiser. Who's PJ? This is my latest channel member, PJ Barwin. Oh, he's written me a note. Dear Sebastian, I plan to borrow against my home to buy a yacht. What's the historical interest rate? Well, let me see. Up the top we have all the raw historical interest rates, and they are encoded in the graph down the bottom. If I can turn that cumulative graph into a single number, then I can officially state what the Australian home loan rates have been over the last 65.1 years. And it turns out I can. Oh, I just got a thanks from Elmo via Pay ID. You've outdone yourself. Thanks. Nice. Thank you very much, Elmo. People are wanting to know, based on the research I've done for Elmo's video, how we can figure out what the long-term interest rate was for Australian mortgages. Oh, here it is, CAGR, the compound annual growth rate. It turns out the CAGR is a single interest rate, exactly what we're after. That when you apply it each year, it takes you from here all the way up to there. And fortunately, my graphing software, which I wrote myself, calculates the CAGR for me. Do you want to take a look? Where is it? Oh, 8.53%. You are now armed with one of the most powerful pieces of information an investor could ever want to know. What is the break-even point? If an investment returns more than 8.53%, then it may make sense to borrow to invest in it. If it returns less than that, then it probably doesn't make sense at all. But Chris wants to know for sure. He believes his veggie garden has doubled the value of his house. This is my latest channel member, Christopher Palmer. That is one impressive garden. But Chris wants to know for sure whether investing in stocks will outpace the mortgage rate. Fortunately, I know the answer, and I'll give you that right now. We have two lines, the red and the blue. In red, we have the stock market return. In blue, the home loan interest rates. And the stock market outperforms home loans. So there is your answer. Now, let's see the raw figures. During the same period, home loans would have cost you 9.13%, but you would have got back 12.4%. Wow. Interesting. Now, the difference is about 3%, and depending on the stock market returns at the time and the home loan interest rates, and remember they fluctuate, could see you make a negative return. Hang on, negative? I thought that we calculated that stocks outperformed home loans. The stock market can go down, yes, at the same time while interest rates go up. Oh. So there could be years when you owe the bank more than you're making from your investments. And no, you can't slip your bank manager a slab and call it even. Although I suspect it won't stop some of you from trying. Oh, I just got a thanks from JW. Thank you very much, JW. Sarah believes she knows the secret to getting rich. Who's Sarah? What's her secret? This is Sarah Hare, my latest channel member. Sarah's secret to getting rich is this. Based on our data, the stock market outperformed the cost of borrowing. But that's not guaranteed for any particular year. So here's a solution. Keep a few years of interest payments in cash. Otherwise, invest in profit. What an interesting solution. But hold on there, Turbo. What if the probability of going bust is 25%? What if you end up owing the bank more money than you borrowed? Could that happen? Well, in theory, yes. Just because stocks outperform interest rates on average doesn't mean that you won't go broke if you try it personally. But there is one way we can make sure. Getting to the truth, we must find 400 Australians with a house and force them to borrow against their home. And we'll count up how many go broke. That sounds entirely reasonable for a video. Look, my videos are famous for being based on real data. And if 400 Australians have to potentially face bankruptcy just so that we can get to the truth, well, I think that's reasonable. But ever since I used Australians to recreate the Great Emu War at the back of Cooper Pedy, but apparently I'm not allowed to experiment on Australians anymore. So these days I have to experiment on simulated Australians. But first, we need to know what the parameters are. Oh, I just got a thanks from Mr. Steve via PayID. Pesky alien abduction interrupting your work. Thank you very much, Mr. Steve. Your thanks was out of this world. I'm working on an anti-abduction device, which I hope will be ready soon. So, how many years do we want to invest for, Elmo? Say 15 years? And how much are we borrowing, Elmo? Say a 50k parcel. Paying interest only. So I put down those numbers. Plus, we'll use 50k of our own money. The comparison will be between stock market returns and home loan rates from the same randomly sampled dates. Oh. The simulation is complete. No Australians were harmed. It's time to find out the results. And here's one of the simulations. So we start off at $100,000, 50 borrowed, 50 of our own, and the investment goes up with the S&P 500. Look at that. But the investment goes down when the home loan interest rates are greater than the investment returns. And overall, borrowing to invest made a profit. Proving that borrowing to invest is always a good idea, based on a sample size of 1. But as any gobbledoc knows, you can never stop at 1. Oh, here's the graph of all the Monte Carlo simulated runs. We start with 100k and we're simulating for 15 years. Oh, look at that. The longer the time, the more the results diverge. And we made a profit 100% of the time. Oh, except when we didn't. Our simulation has revealed the harsh truth. Even over a long period of time, 15 years, you don't always make money. But look closer. There's the $0 line when things are worthless, and there are simulations that went below that line. Right, let's understand this. You own $50,000. You borrowed 50k, you lose all the 100k, and then you lose even more. And then you still need to repay the 50k, and that wasn't even in the graph. Based on the historical data, this is entirely plausible, but what is the chance it'll happen to you? Oh, I just got a thanks from Paula. Nice. Thank you very much, Paula. That was very kind of you. Based on the simulation, what is the probability that you will go broke if you use leverage? Here it is, the borrow and invest in the S&P 500 total return in Australian dollars. There were 400 simulated Australians, and 52 of them went broke. Oh. And that's why I use simulated Australians, which is a failure rate of 13%? Should you worry about 13%? Yes, it's a 13% higher failure rate than I'd like. But I have some questions. Is going broke an outlier? For most people, is that likely to happen? Does borrowing to invest massively magnify your returns? If I pay for the loan from my income instead of using invested capital, what difference would that make? How do taxes and fees change the rate of failure? How does negative gearing affect the outcome? What is the answer to these questions? Well, I'm not allowed to tell you. That's because these questions, and many more, will appear in part 2 of my video. For legal reasons, I'm unable to give you too much data in one video, otherwise your head will explode. But here's a secret. Shh! Both parts of the video were created together. New channel members and thanks have been split evenly between both videos. I will reveal whether you should borrow to invest or not in part 2, coming up soon. We have seen how likely you are to go broke when borrowing to invest, but the key is not to go broke in retirement. To find out how, click here, or if you've seen that, click here.